This following story comes to us from the Salt Lake Herald dated June 18, 1882, a strange story of death. After a young woman is thought dead, she talks about heavenly sights. There is a very strange story reported from East Boston on Friday the 12th. There died at the residence of Amos R. Lovejoy, number 157 Webster Street, a young lady named Hattie C. Craig, lacking a few days only of being 24 years of age. Her death was preceded by a sickness of nearly a year, and the disease of which she died was clearly of a consumptive nature. Many of the circumstances following the death and preceding the burial of the young lady are of a peculiarly interesting, if not of a distressing nature. On the morning of the 12th, the long-suffering patient seemed to be rapidly nearing the end, and at 11 o'clock she appeared to have breathed her last. The eyes of the young lady were tenderly closed by the sorrowing grandmother, and the body was left alone with the weeping father. He remained about an hour in the chamber of death, and then took his leave with reluctance. Just as he had turned his back upon the beloved form, he was startled by a movement of the body, and an exclamation simultaneously of,
"Papa, Papa, please don't leave me."
When he turned around, he saw with delight and astonishment that his daughter was not a corpse but an actual living and conscious being, endowed with as much intellect and strength as at any time during the last period of her sickness. Of course there was now great joy and consternation throughout the household. When she had become somewhat calm, Miss Craig, with a smile and countenance angelic beyond description, said,
"Oh, Papa dear, do you know where I have been?"
"No, Hattie. Tell me where you have been. Let me know all about it." "No, Hattie,"
answered the overjoyed father.
"Oh, Papa, I have seen heaven, and I am to have my health restored to me on certain conditions."
She answered in great glee.
"What are these conditions, and are you willing to submit to them?"
asked the father.
"Yes, Papa, certainly I am."
"But what are they, dear?"
still queried the parent.
"I cannot reveal them to you now, Papa, but oh, I saw such beautiful things in heaven."
"Tell me, won't you, all about who and what you saw? Come now, that's a good girl. Tell me."
"Oh, I saw them all, Papa, and I'm going to heaven again, and when I go, don't let them put me into the ground until you are sure I am quite dead."
During the rest of the day up to 6 o'clock in the evening, the poor girl was alternately in a conscious and swooning condition. At 6 o'clock, she seemed to have died. There was no change in the body for 3 days, and several physicians counseled that the body be kept from the tomb. On the 4th day, however, there were unmistakable signs of death, and the interment took place. This next article, dated June 2, 1882, from the Hickman Courier, out of Kentucky, goes into more detail with the following excerpt. During the rest of the day up to 6 o'clock in the evening, the poor girl was alternately unconscious and in a swooning condition. In her lucid moments, which were frequently prolonged, she all the while insisted that she had been in heaven, but no inducements could tempt her to reveal the splendors and delights of what she saw on the golden shores. She is said to have been impressed with an indescribable desire, even an absolute longing to return. Soon after this she had 5 or 6 spasms, and in the last one she was in excruciating agony, and piteously begged to be killed. Soon after she died. In view of what happened in the morning, it was determined to have the most absolute proof of death before making any arrangements for the obsequies or burial. A close watch of the remains detected a movement of the eyeballs at frequent intervals, and one of the eyes persisted in keeping open in spite of all efforts to close it. Dr. E.A. Gilman, of South Boston, made a careful examination and advised against interment until there was unmistakable signs of decomposition. The funeral took place Sunday afternoon, the services being conducted by Reverend Mr. Gifford, of the Warren Avenue Church. At this time the appearance of the body had not changed, and one of the near relatives is firm in the belief that Miss Craig heard every word of the exercises. Subsequent to the funeral, Dr. Taft of Worcester said the case was wholly different from any he had ever witnessed. There were none of the usual evidences of death, and yet he could not believe that the girl was living. 4 days after the first supposed dissolution, the most unmistakable evidences of mortification were apparent, and the remains of the poor girl were on that day taken to Andover for final interment. Not much more can be said about Hattie G. Craig except that her cause of death is listed as phthisis, which is an old-timey word for tuberculosis, and she is buried at South Church Cemetery in Andover, Massachusetts. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.